Welcome to the October 13th, 2021 edition of the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, brought to you by the National Urban League. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, president of the Harlem, New York-based diversity recruitment firm, East Coast Executives. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. The Digital Career Success Series, DCSS as we call it, is a professional development series that helps members of our Urban League Young Professional chapters and other diverse job seekers develop new skill sets that will enhance their careers through digital platforms such as webinars and Facebook Live. The goal is to provide an opportunity for professional development right from one's computer. So according to a 2018 report from the National Center for Women in Information Technology, 57% of the US workforce is made up of women, but only 26% of technology-related positions are held by women. During this webinar, attendees will learn what challenges women face in STEM and the steps to overcome them. So today's DCSS, Women in STEM, Shattering the Glass Ceiling, is sponsored by Anheuser-Busch, and it features one of their own, Ashley Gray of Anheuser-Busch, and Ashley Furness of Anheuser-Busch. I must have Kimberly Gray on my mind, Kimberly Gray of UVI. So I mixed them together because I saw the slides and they were so seamless that I just mixed the names together as well. Listen, we're going to just jump right in. And Ashley, welcome you to the DCSS. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you today, Kenneth?
Yeah, I'm exceptional. It's a great day. It's a DCSS day, so I'm good. I get to hang out with the two of you. When we were on the call leading up to this, the energy was amazing. So I'm just really excited to learn a little more about you and kind of position this conversation. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, wonderful. I am so happy to be here. Thanks again for that introduction. My name is Ashley Furness, and as you can see from that banner above, those amazing folks up top, I'm a family girl. Those smiling faces you see are my 4 beautiful children and my loving, amazing husband, Lee Furness. So I was born here, St. Louis. I'm a true St. Louisan. I love my emos, my toasted ravioli, my Budweiser beer. And if you don't know about any of those, just ask me later. I've attained both my master's and undergraduate degree at Lindenwood here in St. Louis. I serve on a couple of boards as a trustee member, one at One Family Church, which I'm also a member, and then also Major Decision Wrestling Club. I am also a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, where I actively serve the Omicron Eta Omega chapter. Before joining Anheuser-Busch, I was a senior accountant at 2 major general contractors here in the St. Louis area, Clayco and Tarleton Construction. Here at AB, I've had the pleasure of working on several dynamic roles. I started my AB career in 2018 on the zone maintenance team, where I supported both learning and development for our maintenance technicians and inventory management for the storeroom across US and Canada. That's a little bit about me.
That's a lot about you. I love it. And I'm going to have to circle back on this toasted ravioli. I'm not familiar, but
oh, it's amazing.
Okay.
Well, let's shut off line.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So always online and always on point. Kimberly Gray, UVI, talk to us.
Hey, everyone. Happy Wednesday to all. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Kimberly Gray. I am the founder and CEO of UVI, a technology startup based here in New York City. And I'm excited to share this journey as a woman that's been working in STEM, as a Black woman working in tech. You know, I'd love to share some exciting stories. My background, I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I grew up in a suburb of D.C. called Prince George's County, PG County. Both of my parents are retired DC public school principals. So creating a platform that uses video for learning and enhancing training with more equitable outcomes by using mobile devices, which are much more accessible, was extremely exciting for me, coming from a background of working in film and television with Spike Lee, with 40 Acres and a Mule, and now working with companies like Google, being a part of their Black Founders Fund, working with people, with the city of New York. So it's an exciting time. And I think more than anything, technology really breaks the chains that have been keeping us back as far as getting equitable outcomes in this industry. So excited to learn and to share more.
Excited to have you here. Thank you so very much, Kimberly. All right, Ashley, listen, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you do your thing. I will share the Digital Career Success Series platform. We have like the best audience in the world. So they'll have questions. I want them to drop the questions in the Q&A. Adanya, Kanji, the NUL team will manage that chat. You don't have to worry about that, but you can just sit back and do what you do. So let's go.
Thank you. All right, we can hop on in it. First, I'd like to do one more thank you to Kimberly Gray. The amazing interactions that I've had with you thus far have been awesome. So thank you. Thank you. All right. So again, thanks for the awesome introductions here. I'd like to thank National Urban League. Platforms like this are so important. Conversations like this are so important. So thank you for allowing me to be here today. I'd next like to thank Anheuser-Busch. I'm proud to work for a company that understands that forward-thinking conversations like this do have a place, and we sponsor those, we encourage those, and we promote those. AB's commitment to diversity is real and tangible. Our dream of bringing people together for a better world is at the forefront of all we do. So I thank you, AB. Now, there's so much to unpack here, so I'll just jump right in it. We're here to talk about women in STEM, and STEM is all about the numbers. So let's just jump right into it. Females make up about 15% of all engineers in this country. Only about 1 in 5 space industry workers are women. Women comprise about 3% of STEM industry CEOs. And as you know, all these numbers drop dramatically when you're speaking specifically about Black women. With an impressive 57.4% of all working age women in the workforce, one has to wonder why these numbers are so low. Now, women certainly possess the intellect to hold these jobs. Women also have the leadership capabilities to be in these spaces. They even have the same educational opportunities. So what's going on? I think to understand what's going on, we have to understand why we're here. Next slide, please. So by this point, we've all heard the term equality. We speak about it in many different spaces. After all, the largest social movement in this country was built on obtaining equality for people of color. By now, that definition of equality has sunk in, right? It means the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunity. If you want to go mathematical with it, the word represents a symbolic expression of the fact that two quantities are equal. So simply put, it means that they're going to be the same. When we look at this picture of the track, it's round. So if you start at one point and keep running, you'll eventually end up back at that point again. Now, for all my runners in the room, we call this the 400-meter race. It's one full cycle around the track. Equality says that we all start in the same place and we all finish in the same place. But if you look closely, you can see that the distance to make one full cycle around this track increases as you move further away from the center. This means that if a runner in lane 1 and a runner in lane 9 start at the exact same start line, lane 9 has more distance to cover before they can reach the finish line. Therefore, it's putting them at a distinct disadvantage to win this race. If you follow me, shake your head. All right. So the non-disputable inequity here is distance. But what if not only does the person in lane 9 have the same starting point and the same stopping point, but what if there's also a hurdle on the track? Not a figurative hurdle, but a real track and field piece of equipment hurdle. So not only do they have more distance to cover, but now they also have to jump over a hurdle. This would be awful. Do you know how much faster they'd have to run? How much higher they'd have to jump just to win this race? I forgot to mention one more thing. Again, for those familiar with track and field, there's these contraptions called starting blocks. For runners that are trained to use them, they help them start the race faster. But for the runner in lane 9, they've never even heard of them. So now they have to start faster, run harder, and jump higher than that person in lane 1. This is what it feels like to be a woman in STEM. So we've got equality. What fixes this? Have you all heard of equity? By definition, equity is the quality of being fair and impartial. Now let's toss it back over to the track again. The sport of track and field has come up with a scientific method to close the gap distance between lanes 1 and 9. They simply place the runner in lane 9 further up the track. Now lanes 1 and 9 have the same distance to run to make it to the finish line. Good news, right? So in this scenario, let's say someone somewhere realized that lane 9 was the only lane that had a hurdle in it. This someone happened to be a sponsor of the race, an important person who helped make decisions for the event. They realized that this was unfair and was able to speak to some of the officials to get it moved. In addition, the runner in lane 9 not only discovered what these running blocks are, but then they were also trained and informed on how to use them. The barriers that made it difficult for the runner to not only finish the race, but to win were taken away. Those physical items of unfairness or inequities were removed. This is a good thing, right? We're well on our way. We've got this. But there's one more thing we haven't discussed, and that's the mentality of what being in lane 9 means. If you've ever been a runner, you know that you do not want to be in lane 9. It's something about this lane that just feels different. It feels isolating. It feels like you're automatically at a disadvantage. Now, the distance has been closed, the hurdle has been removed, and the runner has been given the block and taught how to use it. But as a runner in lane 9, you start to wonder, why didn't anyone tell you about these starting blocks before? And why was there a hurdle in the track anyway? There are 8 other people in this race and no one else had a hurdle. Because of the runners and the way they're staggered to account for the distance, lane 9 is actually looking back at the rest of the runners wondering, what are they thinking? Do they think I have an unfair advantage that they don't? Do they think there's something else going on? Is there something I don't know about? All these things mentally play in that runner's head. Not only that runner's head, but women in an industry that's dominated by men, it plays in their head, right? Do you know that on their annual performance reviews, about 66% of women receive negative feedback regarding their personality? Feedback such as, you're too aggressive, or you don't speak up enough. Only about 1% of men get this feedback. After hearing this a couple of years in a row, a couple of times in a row, a couple of cycles over and over around that track, right? Just like the runner in lane 9, you start to doubt yourself and your capabilities. You begin to question others around you and consistently second guess, am I who I say I am? Not only do you second guess that, you second guess what you say and how you say it. Again, women in STEM have become that runner in lane 9. Many of our physical barriers have been removed. Progress has been made. But the mental of being the only woman in the room, and for people that look like me, the only Black person and the only woman in the room, y'all, that's taxing. It places us in a situation where you are not able to bring your authentic self, where you consistently struggle with imposter syndrome. And it's because you personally know so many intelligent, innovative leaders that are women, yet they're not in these rooms, so why should I be? For far too many of us, this is the reality. Now that we've discussed where we are and how we got there, what are we going to do about it? Next slide, please. Angela Davis, in all of her profound glory, once said, I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept. Despite mental and physical barriers, I want to empower each one of you to take 4 impactful actions today. Number 1, be an owner. This is your career. Own it. Own your choices. Own your development. Own your abilities. And own what you bring to the table. You are here. You belong here simply because you are here. Society has infiltrated into us this thought that there has to be a difference when it comes to capability and sex. And there is not. There is no factual basis for this. We're all rooted in the industry of facts and science and math, and there is nothing to validate this assumption. Second thing I want you to do is build your network. It may feel like you're on an island by yourself, but you're not. You just have to connect. There aren't many to connect with, but when you find those opportunities, you connect. Unfortunately, opportunities of leadership are most often given to people who know the leaders. Those people typically look like the leaders, right? The larger your network, the more likely you are to get included in those opportunities. Next, I want you to cultivate and mentor the women under and around you. We all know and understand how invaluable mentorship is. Remember the young lady you used to be when you entered this industry? What advice would you give her? What tools of success would you have wanted her to have in order to be successful, in order to push her to the next level? Lay the foundation to make sure the next generation of leaders in STEM can focus more on innovation and less on equality. Finally, ladies, be bold, be confident. Women, especially women in this field, have spent far too much time being quiet and in the background. You belong simply because you are here. Your credentials got you here. You are educated. You are groundbreaking and transformative. There is nothing the guy sitting next to you has to offer that you don't. Be bold enough to change the perception that women aren't logical, that women are too emotional, because we know we're passionate and passion drives results. My final message to you all is, again, this is your career. Be the thermostat and not the thermometer. See, with impeccable accuracy, the thermostat tells you what the temperature it is. It gauges and reports what's going on around us. And this is great for informational purposes. But you're a mover. You have to be the thermostat that controls the temperature. The thermostat dictates what goes on around it. This is your space. You belong here simply because you are here. At Anheuser-Busch, we believe strongly in the power of words. We have built our 10 principles around some of those words, but then we have things that we use that are more tangible in our day-to-day. So when difficult things come our way, when those damn near impossible tasks are presented to us, we have a little something that we say, and it's challenge accepted. Challenge accepted means it may seem impossible, but I am innovative. I am intelligent. I'm at the forefront of all that I do and all that I am. I'm here because my hard work, because my intelligence, because everything that I've had going on got me here. Ladies, remember that. Remember that when you're facing adversity. Remember that when you're in those rooms where it seems like if you speak up, you may be criticized. Speak up, do it. This is your career and you own it. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you today.
You're not done. Don't worry about it. We're coming back to you.
All right.
So, wow, amazing. I'm going to start there. There are some things that I want to drill down on. We're going to, of course, let Kimberly do her thing, but I think the layered structure of this conversation is going to lead to some really good conversation at the end. So thank you so very much for all that you've added. Kimberly Gray, mic is yours, my friend.
Hey guys, thanks again for having me. Ashley, so well put. And it's so great for someone like me to hear and see this information, right? Like, because, you know, corporate America is one structure where we have these glass ceilings, but people need to know that this same structure can be embodied in tech as well, right? So let's dive into some of these statistics. And these are things that I've experienced personally as a tech entrepreneur, as a Black female. I think I mentioned before, my background was in film production, video production, working in that industry, and then to go and do this big shift to technology and say, hey, you know, I have an idea, you know, I want to get a patent, I want to create a startup, I want to work with schools, I want to help people. It's a lot, you know, it can be pretty jarring. So if you look at some of these stats, Black women make up only 2.2% of STEM students. So something that's important to us with UVI, my company that, focuses on making course sharing and engagements available on mobile. So you're creating easier accessibility to learning and training. STEM is very important because we work with the City University of New York, doing workshops and STEM programs, and there are far too many few women in these positions. So I always make it a point to hire interns and people of women and people of color. Now, let's take that to a startup level, and this is even smaller, in a larger scope of thing, but only about 4% of startups are even founded by Black women. That's just in general, and I'm sure it's even a minutia level if you think about tech, right? So why aren't we opening more of our own businesses? We have to ask these questions. Is it because we don't have that internal foundations in our network, or do we not have the supports systems to do it? That's something that we have to address too, is creating the resources to provide more excitement around that. And lastly, Black women get less than 1% of VC funding, and, I don't want these statistics to be as scary as they are infuriating, because these numbers just shouldn't be. Because if you think about a Madam C.J. Walker, she was the first independent millionaire, Black, white, green, whatever, in this country. And just the legacy that so many Black women, in taking care of families and managing finances for families, it's quite shocking to me that these numbers are incredibly low. So I just want to take some time to unpack that. And then from my own personal experiences, being somewhat of a non-technical founder, I've always been a serial entrepreneur, but being a non-technical founder, I may have been a little naive, coming into this market. And even though we've had early success, getting into South by Southwest, creating partnerships with the City University of New York, which is excelling from there, but it was not easy. And I won't begin to tell you it is, but, connecting with organizations inside of your community, like there's Black Women Talk Tech, there's Women in Tech, there's all different types of meetups. There are resources for us. This opportunity with National Urban League is just that, is our resources, so we have to really, really take advantage of these. So next slide, please. So what we really want to do here is just empower women in general, but especially women in STEM and women in technology, because we're far overlooked. And this is really a lucrative market, guys, lucrative. And a lot of the people that are the stakeholders in this industry don't really have access to people like us, and they don't know where to identify people like us. I think we've all seen in the last year how important companies are making diversity and inclusion initiatives, especially big tech. I'm a Google, part of the inaugural Google Black Founders Fund. They've made that initiative to address the inequalities in this ecosystem when it comes to startups, when it comes to founders of color, whether it be resources or lack of information, it can be very challenging. So in other words, to create a system where we can level this playing field and provide opportunities, there's a lot of different programs that are out there that have corporate diversity and inclusion programs. I've already mentioned Google for Startups, which is run by a woman of color, Jewel Burke. There's also Boss Lab, which is under Pillsbury law firm, my law firm, which is empowering founders of color by providing free legal services up to $25,000. And you have different VCs that are dedicated specifically in this space. And on a higher level, if you look at like a Plexo, which invests in companies like Concrete Rose, there's K4 Capital, there's quite a few that are in this space. And you really have to just do your research. You have things like Black Girl Ventures, so really, really do your research, because there are opportunities out there for us. Then you can look into grants. We've received a grant from the Bella Education Fund to support, called Meet the Moment, for supporting K-12 students in New York City Public School, which we're a vendor for, and coming from an environment like New York City, where you see so much inequalities in education, and we're in a position to reduce this divide right here on our mobile devices. So making learning more accessible, making training, this is something that me and Ken talk about, all the time with Black Box and East Coast executives, is creating better and more sustainable ways and ecosystems for us all to excel, because there's more than enough opportunities out here for all of us. So these are some of the suggestions that I can provide to enable us to have more equity out here. Next slide, please. So with all that being said, when I created my platform, UVI, which stands for Universal Video Instructional Interface, the purpose of this platform was to create more inclusivity and to create easier accessibility. So if you think about all of us now, we're using Snapchat, we're using TikTok, we're using Clubhouse in some capacity, but what we all need is a place where we can have like a personalized social media interface for us to communicate each other without worrying about somebody trying to take your data or surreptitiously, get data about you, but a place to actually have real conversations. And I think some of the limits that we have within social media right now is that we're all in these little boxes. Well, UVI takes you out of that box by creating a group virtual collaboration platform that continues the conversation with video commenting, audio commenting in real time. That's not something you can do on Facebook. That's not something you can do on Instagram. You can't respond to video comment. So imagine, like, even with this conversation, if we wanted to keep the conversation going, UVI is a platform for that. Thank you for putting that up there. So we work with educational institutions. We work with enterprise organizations like Verizon. We just did a campaign with them, interested in doing more stuff within the Google ecosystem. But the purpose is for us all to have a platform for us to be able to communicate and connect in real time. And this is tethered with data analytics on our portal, so we can measure productivity and engagement with students, and same thing with on the training side with employees. Because I think one thing a lot of us don't have is time. So creating an easy on-the-go way to access curriculum or just general conversations to get everybody on the same page, instead of being like, dang, what did they say in the Zoom call? Like file left, you forgot, like here's a point of reference, right, around a specific subject or topic. So we share videos right to the video, we share text messages to the video capture screen, ask questions, get feedback, all in real time. So, I'm more than happy to connect and tell you more about UVI, and maybe we can set up a group with your organization on there as well. So we can definitely talk more about that. But I would love to hear from the audience and hear more from Ashley and Ken about how we can kind of keep this message going and make it even more powerful. So thank you guys for your time.
We got you. Thank you, Kimberly Gray, UVI. I love it. So listen, I want to take a deeper informational dive into something. I don't know what part of Ashley's discussion made me think of this, but Kimberly, I think you'll be able to add value as well. So typically when I'm speaking to women in tech, like women that are working in the space, or even when I'm following some of their moves, right? And there's a great article by Refinery 29. I read it. It was months ago, but it was 6 Black women to follow in tech. And it was a great piece. Because some of these people are at big companies, Visa, Instagram, things of that nature. And just really close with Kanika Tolver, PG County resident, actually, and originally from PG. Kim, if you don't know Kanika, I'll connect the dots, but she's amazing. And other people in tech that I speak to, and they speak a lot about kind of how you can position yourself and move when you're already in the space, right? Like they've gotten in, but I'd like to hear more about ways that, like, especially coming out of the pandemic, people are pivoting, making career pivots, right? So what are the ways that women in particular kind of position themselves for opportunities in tech if they so desire? So any suggestions, Ashley, Kimberly?
I'm going to pivot to Kimberly on this one only because I think it's such an interesting space, and she's clearly built a lane here. So I'd love to hear how you've navigated through this one.
Well, I think this is one example of it. I mean, I think in this last year, I think I mentioned before, diversity and inclusion initiatives have really, blown up, right? So it's like everybody, a lot of these big companies, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Google, a lot of the big tech companies in corporate structures, Goldman Sachs, they have initiatives specifically for Black women. If there's a company you're interested in working with, if there's a company that you like, go Googling. And I guarantee you're going to find one of these initiatives. Again, like within your community, it's opened up a floodgates for us to have like more equity here. Another one is Camelback Ventures. They're very focused on investing in startups for Black and brown people, especially if that has to do with, equitable outcomes, in low income minority communities. You really just have to do your outreach. You have to use social media. If you have something you want to promote, if you have something you want to sell. And if you want to work with us at UVI to create a group and organization, to add your organization on our platform so you can start doing outreach to your audience, we can, support that as well. But I think you really just have to use what we have in the palm of our hand all day long are these mobile devices. And like a lot of the tools that you need to access, I mean, it might be just be tweeting the right person on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that you admire, and your network is where you start. You have to start within your local network. But there's a lot of organizations and people, I'm sure even on this call, that would be willing to help with that.
Yeah, great point. Kind of working it through. So my company, East Coast Executives, we're part of the Google Employer Consortium, right? So Google has a program where they offer career IT certificates, right? People that are literally working completely in another field can take these classes on Coursera, get a certificate, and then Google will support them in connecting them with employment partners. And that's kind of the piece where we come in. But I've seen people have success there, like people that are laywomen to tech, and then they complete a course, literally 6-8 months, give or take. And it prepares them for a career in tech, but more importantly, they get the support of a big brand like Google that has employment partners that they can kind of make casual introductions to, right? So I think that's been a big help. Ashley, I really would like to talk about kind of if you're internal, say you're at a place like AB, right? Have you, and this is, that you don't have to speak about your career specifically, but maybe even people that you've seen that you've worked side by side with or at other organizations, have you seen them take stretch roles that have led them into tech opportunities?
Absolutely. I think we've mentioned it several times on this call. It's all about the network. And when you're looking to go cross-functionally, it's who are you speaking to in those spaces? What is your understanding of those spaces? Earlier, I spoke about owning your own development. Kenneth, to the program that you were just speaking about, right? It takes someone saying, I want to pivot, I want to change, I'm going to take this opportunity to educate myself and to develop myself. And then in doing that, you make those same connections, you build that network, and you're able to easily transition into those different spaces that you want.
I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and they kind of led me down a road where they said, listen, people are talking about getting into tech careers, but what they're not understanding is that we'll all be in a tech career soon, right?
Frankly, yes. This is a tech landscape, whether you look at it that way or not. But I will say one other factor that could be very, if you're interested in government contracting, for instance, I mean, that's huge money, guys, that like people just don't pay enough attention to because like, oh, I need a certification. It's really not that much, so if you want, so as we're like an MWBE certified company in New York City, so minority owned, female led. So that means we can bid on contracts with the city, IT solutions, consultant contracts up to 500K, without having to do any type of real bid, like a no contest bid, right? So you have to accept other offers, right? And then let's say you have some type of technology, if it's single source or sole source, that can also put you in a position to get contracts. And this doesn't always have to be contingent on being a minority, but using that program, going through SBS, Small Business Services. Every city should have some type of small business services that will enable you to get those certifications. And this is a nationwide opportunity, just in your immediate area. Also going through the Department of Commerce. They have their minority diversity business agency as well. So do your research. There's always some grant contracting opportunities. Register your company on sam.gov, and find out about these opportunities, because there's more than one way to skin a cat. You have to have multiple streams of income anyway, right? So don't sell yourself short.
Kimberly, that makes me think of a situation that we're going through right now. So in the corporate space, there are different ways that you as an individual contributor can add additional value, right? So technology is ever changing. We're consistently changing platforms. We're consistently changing our networks. All of those things are going up and down. And we're in a space right now where we're changing one complete platform over to another. There's a transition period. There's data analysis that needs to be done. There's migration that needs to be done. Yep. And that may not fall under the scope of the project, but if an individual contributor has that experience, or they can gain that experience while we're going through this transition, it just provides so much value. And from a corporate space, it adds to you, particularly on the back end, right? When you're looking at what you want to do next, well, you have a complete body of work that you've already added to. So it shows your value and worth on a different level.
I agree. And if you guys have an RFP, let me know.
So what? It's great to have this conversation. And I don't know if we set this up originally to look this way, but to have someone that kind of is thinking from the entrepreneurship perspective and someone who's thinking from a career growth perspective. But Kimberly, I want to ask you a question, and then I want to go immediately to one of the questions in the Q&A. How did you get into tech? Like, what sparked you into not just getting in it, but literally jumping out the window, right? Like you
literally jumping out a window. And I saw in the chat, it's MWBE certification. You can get it for city and state. So like I mentioned before, my background was in film and television. I was working in costume design with Spike Lee under Ruth Carter, the great costume designer, doing a lot of commercial print work, Saatchi & Saatchi, great advertising, producing documentaries, one of which that was on HBO called Bastards of the Party, about the history of gangs in LA. So I've always been a serial entrepreneur. I opened the first 3D 4D ultrasound prenatal photography location in Harlem called Tiny Portraits 3D Imaging. So, I've always been a serial entrepreneur. So about 4 years ago, still working in film and television, I was just like, why can't we video comment on Instagram or in real time, or Facebook, right? And I just noticed this void in the market. And I'm like, so in 2018, we got in South by Southwest, and I always designed UVI to be an application that would enable students to interact with instructors, but also potentially with brands, right? If you think about it, I remember being in college when I was at Howard and went to FIT. That's literally like the most desirable customer. Like, you'll be on campus, you got MasterCard there, you have Verizon there, all of these different companies, because students are just, desirable as brand ambassadors, as consumers. So me creating a platform that is not just good for learning, but also to create reward systems with brands and with universities that will enable smart students and proactive students to get discounts on tuition, get discounts on products that they love, and exchange what is the brands are getting, basically a lifetime customer, in a sense, in a lifetime value of a customer, and maybe even a potential employee down the road. So I'm very passionate about focusing on professional development services and creating, on an enterprise level, inviting organizations to create accounts on UVI, because this is a safe space. And I think all that inspiration just came from like my film and television background, being the descendant of Booker T. Washington, both of my parents being retired principals, kind of brought that full circle, doing a video application. Now, when I applied for my patent 4 years ago, I just was like sketching stuff down, and, then I was using Fiverr, and then I found my team in India, and then I went to India. And then, I met my development team, but it definitely didn't happen overnight. I'm a single mom. I'm living in New York City. It didn't happen overnight, but I think the passion just came from my background and just seeing a major void in this market. And then that's what led me to creating this, getting a patent 4 years later for this virtual collaboration system and method.
Great, thank you. So Ashley, you know what? I was looking at a piece of your background and I can't remember. If you don't mind, please share with me your current role.
So currently, I've actually talked about those cross-functional roles because that's what I've done. Before I was on the supply side of things, so working heavily with our engineers and folks in our utilities and that nature. Now I am in recruitment.
Okay.
So I saw the need to work things on the front end, right? I had a lot of success being in those rooms, but I noticed that we still had a block on getting folks in the door that looked like me. So now I have the opportunity to do that.
You took me right where I wanted to go. Thank you. I thought that you were in talent acquisition, but I wasn't sure. So you're in recruitment, talent acquisition. So Absolutely. We have a question from David, and he wants to know, what can men do to help raise these numbers of women in tech? And so your job, especially now as a talent acquisition professional, is really to address workplace diversity on a lot of levels. So I'm sure you're doing certain things, but those things are probably very standard in the role, male or woman. What can we do to raise the numbers of women in tech?
Correct. So, when I think about this in terms of our space, we hear diversity and inclusion. And from a recruitment standpoint, diversity comes first because you got to get that diverse candidate in the door. But once you are already in the door, I come with all the diversity I got. That's it. So now it's about making an inclusive environment. And that's what can be done once you get that diversity in the door. You see that entering corporate America from IT, from engineering, you see those levels are consistently rising. But once you reach a threshold, they fall off and they never quite make it to that leadership point. So we have to address the reasons of why those numbers, why those women are leaving and either going to other industries or other professions, right? Mm-hmm. And there's reasons for that. Is your environment conducive? Is your environment inviting? Do you appreciate? Do you ask to speak up? I've been in several rooms where I've been told, I've given the hand. Mm-hmm. And you have to systematically learn how to come back and work from that. But if your environment says that's not acceptable, that is not how we operate, then it provides further opportunity for women in those rooms. Additionally, because women have not been in those rooms, because we come from a very old society of old thinking, if we're being honest, there are perceptions of women that we have allowed to perpetuate from generation to generation. And one is that women aren't logical, is that women can't be as structured and systematic as a man. Those things are not true. And so as a leader, as a male leader, tearing down those perceptions and setting different standards, again, allows women to not only enter that room, but to flourish. Because we know that when I bring my authentic self in there, I'm engaged. Engagement drives performance. Performance drives results.
Yep.
I love it. It's so Kimberly, I guess, reverse engineer it. Same question though. What can men founders, let's just go here. Even at a small scale, right? So we spoke about other women founders in tech and what those numbers look like, and they're not great at all by any stretch. But I've found that communities that work are communities that connect. Mm-hmm. So what can we do? And you know what, I'm saying we now because I have an app, Kim.
I know it's us now. And especially, I guess this is an especially important question for you because you are addressing more specifically to Black males,
right?
Professionals. So I think we just have to keep strong, stronger together, right? So providing information, spreading the word about businesses. I mean, it's been so many, Black men that have been supportive of my company, you included, making the right introductions, do more follow through. Do the follow through for women that you would do like with one of your homeboys or something. Make that follow through happen. And somebody mentioned we have to talk more, more in depth about STEM. When you're talking about STEM, what you're talking about is education in many ways. You're talking about creating the infrastructure to train people to desire these type of positions. And this has to start as a much younger age. Right. So thinking about elementary school, I have a 10-year-old son. He did a coding camp this summer. With UVI, we support the mayor's office. They have a talent tech pipeline, STEM boot camp. The STEM boot camp leads to internships for companies like UVI, which ideally leads to career pipelines for success. It's great to go to school, but it's even better to come out of school with a job. So I think we have to extend the reach at a younger age. And in terms of men, just, in general, just, spreading the word, making us, a part of that club, if you will, so because I think we can all serve each other's resources very, very well.
Speaking of resources, as we come down the stretch here, Ashley, are there any resources and/or portals of information that you closely monitor, not only for talent, but just to stay sharp in your space?
So Kimberly brought it up. I say what you must, say what you may, social media. It is what's going on. Now, there's a responsibility of the user to vet your information, right? But when you want to talk about, I can't know everything on my own. So I build a network to where I have someone to go to for everything I need. And that's honestly how I operate. And so it keeps me from overwhelming myself with information, but having everything right at my fingertips.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad that people come to the Digital Career Success Series to get what they need, and they're getting it from the two of you today. You know what? I'm going to ask everybody to excuse me. I live in Harlem. It's loud outside right now. Like, it's really loud.
I don't hear it. I'm in Harlem too. The Harlem gods are being nice to us today.
Yeah,
sirens,
If you hear background noise, that's what that's all about. Trust me. All right. So Kimberly, listen, you spoke about South by Southwest, and I'm sitting here thinking there may be people on the call that aren't familiar with that movement, we'll call it, right? So, or the event in general. Can you just take a dive into that just a little?
Right. And let's face it, over the last year and a half, in-person events haven't really been the vibe. But you have a huge conference called South by Southwest, which is one part tech. So I was on the innovation side for Release It, which was a startup pitch competition. We were one of the finalists. Then they have, so you have education. They actually have a South by Southwest EDU now as well. But this is where everybody in tech, from Twitters to the Facebooks to the Googles, they all converge in Austin, Texas. Usually around, I always know because it's like the anniversary of Biggie's death. It's like March 9th, like March 9th and March 11th. God bless him. And it's a huge conference. So getting into that conference was like enormous. I mean, they have amazing sponsors, lots of great coverage. And it was at that point that I realized, wow, this could be a very powerful solution for education and helping, because like with CUNY alone, they have 500,000 students. New York City Public Schools, 1.3 million students, largest school district in the country. So what better way to serve my local community by providing more accessibility to learning, more accessibility to training in the most convenient way possible, which is on mobile. And we're talking about Generation Z, but I can't stress enough that accelerators, things like Camelback Ventures, Black Founders Fund with Google, Boss Lab I mentioned before, find out about these guys, research these guys, because they're going to give you that lifetime of a network. I mean, that's why you go to college. People say it's to get degrees, but really it's your network. When you leave Harvard, you have a network. You're AKA, you have a network, right? So don't take these networks for granted, because that's where sometimes your career, your opportunities are going to come from.
And there was a lady, and she's a friend actually. Her name's JT O'Donnell. We had her on the Digital Career Success Series platform maybe about a year ago. And she speaks about having a tribe, right? Having your own tribe. And I think when you attend events like South by Southwest or any event that's designed to bring people that are idea generators into a room around a certain cause, and in this case, technology. You're going to find people that not only become part of your network, but future business partners as well, hopefully. So I think showing up is a big piece of success. Ashley, I want to speak to you about a question that came into the Q&A because you spoke about imposter syndrome earlier. And that's something we've covered on the Digital Career Success Series, but I find it to be an extremely important piece to share, especially from your perspective. So the question was, how do you overcome the feeling of needing to prove your capabilities in STEM to your colleagues?
You do it. We have data at our fingertips, right? And when you come, what do they say? What Jay-Z say? Men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. You come prepared and you come with your data. You always have it and you have it right. And no one can refute that. The delivery is I have to admit, that's been the hard thing for me, is how do I deliver? Because again, like I spoke about earlier, a lot of women receive that, oh, you're too aggressive or you're too passive. So finding that sweet spot is going to be where the work always happens. But you overcome it by doing it. Yeah. You just have to do it. You can't go over it, around it. You got to go through that one.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And sometimes you won't have that chance to think about it. You just have to do it, you know. Sometimes you won't have a chance to, you're just gonna have to do it scared. You're just gonna have to do it in the moment to get it done. And like you said, numbers don't lie. You know, so when I say we saw an 80% increase in student engagement using the platform, and that Medgar Evers College students are saying, look, this is a tool that I can use that will help me stay in school. You can't deny that. You know, you have to get the feedback to even understand the value. You know, so with all those no's is a critique that'll lead to a yes.
Exactly. I mean, Kimberly, how many times have you been in these rooms scared as hell, delivering what you know is right? You're standing on gold, right? But you just have to run through it. Your product is what it is. Your brand is what it is. You have to sell that.
Yep.
I love it, man. Brooklyn definitely in the building. Kim with the Biggie reference, Ashley with the Jay-Z reference. All right, well, listen. Any closing words? We're going to start with you, Kimberly. Do you have any closing words for our audience today?
I just want to thank National Urban League, Kanji, you, Ashley. Thank you guys so much for having me today. I look forward to doing more work with you, supporting you. I think my best piece of advice is just to never give up, and don't let anybody tell you who you should be or what they think you should be, because that's all BS, you know. And if you notice, like, once you're confident in yourself and you have things going for you, everybody's going to want to be around you anyway. So just stick with your blinders on, never give up, and stick to your guns and make it happen.
I love it. Thank you so very much. Ashley, we give the mic to you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Kimberly, you are amazing. Such an inspiration you have been. I thank you so much for standing in the space that you stand. Urban League, thank you for this platform. Anheuser-Busch, thank you for all of your support. I would leave you with this one message, right? A lot of those physical hurdles that we have in the race, they have been removed. And so much of what we deal with right now as women in this industry is mental. And it may be mental on the other person's side or our side, but just remember, mental is a fight that you fight inwardly. So as Kimberly said, you keep pushing, you keep going, stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before you. Thank you very much, guys.
Yes, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Wow, amazing. I love it. I really enjoyed this conversation today. Thank you so very much for joining us. Listen, we do it each and every other weekend, but I know we just ran 2 weekends back to back. But we'll be back. I believe it is October 27th with Breaking Into Tech. So join us Wednesday. I'm sorry, it's November 3rd from 12 to 1. People of color face various barriers to entering the tech industry. During this webinar, attendees will learn how to break into tech and prepare for the jobs of tomorrow. So this will be sponsored by CSL Rearing. But listen, this is a continuation of the conversation that we were having today with Ashley and Kimberly. We believe it's a valuable conversation because, like we had mentioned early in this, everybody's going to be in a tech career sooner or later, it seems like. And we want you guys to not miss that boat and just stay really active with creating and developing your skill sets and using platforms like this to be in the know and stay in the know. On behalf of the National Urban League, Wanda Jackson, Kanjit Jordan, Adanya Humphrey, and the DCSS team, I'd just like to thank Ashley Furness, Kimberly Gray, and Anheuser-Busch for making this a really special day. I appreciate both of you and really have enjoyed the energy and the time today. My name's Kenneth L. Johnson. Thank you for attending this Digital Career Success Series offered by the National Urban League. We'll see you on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.